Okay, I suggest we get started then, if everybody is ready. Welcome to the mid-PI review for PI 24. It's probably a little later in the cycle than we would normally do, but um, and we kind of started a little late on some work streams, so I don't think that's a problem. Simeon sent out invitations to register for the convening, which is happening in just over a month's time. I think it's an online event, so please make sure you're registered for that. And a lot of you, I would imagine, would be presenting at that, so you need to make it clear that you are ready to present, etc., etc. So the purpose of today is to review progress so far on our official work streams. Here, this is our list of work streams for this PI. Not quite a few work streams there, perhaps more than one might expect. Um, uh, and I want to reassure people that if you're feeling that you haven't made as much progress as you want, that's fine. We just need to effectively understand where each work stream is and what you might expect to deliver by the end of this PI. I know that a number of these work streams were very late to start. So I think we need to be clear, uh, as opposed to, working code. Are you delivering specifications or standards, or is it something that can be picked up in the next PI? And what are your priorities? Um, I don't expect all of these work streams to have completed. For example, an obvious ISO 222. The work on that hasn't begun. We've only really begun our definition of the APIs relating to them, the adopted ISO 222 messages. So we're not expecting to see a working native ISO 222 implementation today, or by the convening. But we do want to understand what the plans are. With that, then, a number of people are going to be presenting multiple times. I'm happy if you want to do it all in one go or separate it out. But I think I see that first up, we have the participation tools and on-premise work stream. So that's James Bush. So I will hand over to James to give us an update on that work stream.
Thank
So
you, Paul. Let me just get my slides up. Okay, please can you confirm if you can see my slides?
yes.
Okay, fantastic. Participation tools. This is quite a short deck because I don't have a lot to show you, but we have made some progress since the start of the PI. But just to recap, the objectives of the work stream are to create a diverse set of open source tools which remove or reduce barriers for DFSPs to participate in module loop schemes. We want to restate and clarify the need and the high-level requirements for these tools in order and to simplify contributions from the community in this area. And so far in this PI, we have restated general requirements. We've begun forming a backlog in GitHub of work items. We are quite limited with resources. We have some contributions from some community members, but it's quite limited at the moment. So we are still looking for more input from community members, be they adopters or hub switch operators, existing or potential, or DFSPs. Anybody with a view on the complexities of joining, participating in a modular loop scheme, please feel free to come and join us. We're also looking for software engineering contributions. We have some work items starting to form around changes to the SDK, requirements for changes to Payment Hub EE, etc. We have a document in progress that we've been collaborating on to restate the requirements from our thinking. We're starting to build some BDD style epics and user stories in our backlog and prioritize those. As we go, we're finding some questions that we need to answer. And we're trying to figure out which of these requirements are already delivered by existing tools in the ecosystem and what new things we need to do. I'll post this document in the Slack channel for this work stream. That's really all I have to say on participation tools. Thank you to everybody that's contributed so far. There is a Slack channel, ws-participation-tools. Feel free to come and join that Slack channel. I'll pin a link to the working document to that channel. So if anybody wishes to come and join or has any spare cycles, this is a very important piece of the puzzle to delivering our mission. So I'd encourage anyone who has the cycles to spare, please come and help us. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions from the floor? No? In that case, I will ask. James, what are you hoping to achieve by the end of the convening?
By the end of the upcoming convening, the end of this PI,
Yeah.
We hope to have a backlog created for the following PI. So we're trying to plan ahead by defining these epics and work items. Our plan is to work through these in increasing levels of detail and bring some resources to bear. But certainly before the end of this PI, we are hoping to have a phase one backlog, if you like, a first pass through that backlog complete in GitHub. So in the following PI, we can have some engineering effort focused on delivering some outcomes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Now that document that you've just been sharing, this isn't the time to get detailed comments or even to go through that now. I would encourage people on this call who are interested in increasing participation or making it easier for people to participate to review that document and give their input on it. I think it's a very useful document in terms of the overall philosophy of how we make it straightforward for DFSPs or other stakeholders to join a modular loop deployment. So yeah.
Eventually this will find its way into GitHub. Most of the content in here that we're defining. So at some point this backlog section of the document will transition out. But we're keeping notes of all our meetings and recordings of all the meetings. There is a weekly sync up call for this work stream. Please reach out to me if you'd like an invitation to that. It's an open call. Anyone's welcome to come and join.
Yeah, Julie's asking if you could please share a link to the document.
Yep. I'll share it. Huh?
Yep.
Let me do that afterwards.
Sorry, I can share the link because I think I'm the actual owner of the document.
The document. Okay, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, thanks. So on premise, I know these two are wrapped into one. Are you okay for me to move on to the on premises?
Yes, please do. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, these two are kind of wrapped into one, but we're still thinking of them as separate streams. Quick recap, objectives for this work stream are to make the process of deploying and maintaining Mojo Loop software in private data centers reliable, quick, easy, and cheap. Since this work stream began a couple of PIs ago now, we've made pretty significant progress. We do have the capability of deploying the Mojo Loop switch software in private data centers on premise. We have produced self-serve documentation that enables adopters to run the process themselves. There's one outstanding piece of work that is quite significant, and I know we mentioned this at the last convening as well. The control center that IAC, that the Mojo Loop infrastructure as code deploys, which is kind of the management suite for running multiple Mojo Loop environments, managing, upgrading, and controlling the software in those environments. That it's not part of the switch itself, but that can be deployed into on-prem, but it still has at least one, possibly two, and I'm not quite sure on the latest status, AWS dependencies remaining. So although you can deploy all the Mojo Loop switch software into on-prem, the control center itself still has a couple of AWS dependencies that we're desperately trying to eliminate as quickly as possible. But we are really resource constrained on this work stream at the moment. We struggle to find anybody with the necessary skills and the time to commit to just closing that final gap. So that is outstanding. If we don't find any more resource before the upcoming convening, it's unlikely that we will do that this PI. So please, anybody out there, any engineers with infrastructure IAC experience, specifically around open source DNS, at this point, I don't think we have a super strong opinion about which solutions we might wish to drop in. And there's a number of options for sure. But the Terraform modules need some updating, and we need some experience and expertise with open source DNS to help us just remove those last couple of dependencies. These slides will all be shared after this session today. There's some slides in here that will talk you through the history of the work stream, what our objectives are. Just as a brief recap, we want to enable people to start small so they don't have to spend a lot of money up front, but with the ability to add capacity in small, cheap increments. We don't want any license fee paying technology in the tool set at all. However, we do want to facilitate what's called carrier grade levels of security, reliability, and resilience. And that's the kind of highest grade, the most stringent and strict requirements for security and resilience. But we want to do all this using well-known, tried and tested components and patterns. So as I said, in the quick recap, we do have self-serve IAC install documentation, which is being iterated all the time. So people try that out, test, deploy, and experiment with it. So we just have this one outstanding issue with DNS in the control center. It's not the switch software itself, but the control center that manages the environments. We would like to get that eliminated as soon as possible. So next steps, well, we're going to continue to iterate that documentation. We're continuing to support adopters who are doing on-prem deployments right now, who are running Mojo Loop on-prem right now, and also those adopters who are in the pipeline, moving fast towards doing their first on-prem deployments. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much to everybody that's contributed so far. A significant amount of effort and brain power has gone in so far. please, if you have spare cycles, we'd love to have you contribute. Don't worry if your skills match or if you'll be able to help, please reach out and we can have a talk with you about ways that you can help. We have a Slack channel for this work stream. There it is on the screen, on-premises-deployment. Please join the Slack channel, ask questions, keep an eye on what's going on. Any questions from the floor? Before I hand back over to Paul.
Kareem has asked a question on the chat. Can you see it, or do you want me to read it out?
Just give me a sec. When I'm sharing my screen with the Linux client for Zoom, it doesn't show me the chat by default. Share the link to the current installation document. Yes. Yes, thanks, Kareem. I will do that. Please, if you join the Slack channel, Kareem, well, I'll ping you on the Slack channel with that link. Yeah, it's in gear. I'll do that right now. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions. And for once, I don't have any questions. Thank you, James. That's really good.
No problems. Back over to you then, Paul.
Okay. Thank you, James. If we stick to the schedule, then the next one is merchant payments with Kareem. Kareem, you're on the call. Are you ready to present?
Yes, sure.
Over to you then, Kareem.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, compared to the previous PIs, this time we feel that there hasn't been much work, but whatever we have done so far and what we are doing is just to share the update. So we
Kareem, are you there? Kareem, you're very quiet. Can anyone else hear Kareem?
No, apologies.
No. And he's dropped. Okay, give him a minute to come back. Otherwise, and he's back in the room.
Hello.
Hi, Kareem. You dropped.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Can you see my screen again?
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that after the last convening, we had one task which was to complete the packaging of the work which has been done, so it can be released with any Moja Loop official release. So that has been done. And apart from that, we had two major tasks. One was to create APIs for DFSPs who want to use the merchant portal, but they don't want to use the user interface, but want to interact with the registry using APIs. And the other was about the priority features, which were based on adopters' feedback. And the third one was support for cross-scheme and cross-border merchant payments. So this is what we had listed from the last session, which we had done at the convening. So these were the items which various teams are working on. The first two items are the ones which Wired-In team from Rwanda has been working on regarding the standard APIs for merchant registration and some additional features in the merchant portal. The cross-scheme and cross-border support work, I'll come to that later. And the fourth one, which is integration with Tazama, which is the fraud and risk management system. This is in the context of merchant payments. So there are other items also listed, but we have done some work on these four. So the updates are that one thing which we had to publish the merchant payments as part of official release of Mojo Loop. So Thitsa Works team has completed all the items, and now we are waiting for the next release cycle of Mojo Loop for that. On the work which has been done by Wired sorry, yeah, this one is the detail. So the Wired team in Rwanda has done some work as part of the implementation. These enhancements include the APIs which are required by the DFSPs to onboard merchants in the registry, or to also onboard the data about merchants in the portal. And some DFSP also want to use the portal to bulk upload their existing merchants. So those enhancements the team has done in their own branch of the code, the last packaged code which we had. And we had a discussion with the Wired team to, once they are ready, then those contributions will be merged in the main code base. That's the plan, that by the end of this PI, we should be adding those features which have been worked upon in the main code base. There's the work on integration with Tazama. So we have been so far like looking at that merchant payments wherever we are going to implement. There should be an ability to integrate with the fraud and risk monitoring system. And this integration will be at two levels. One is the entity data about the merchants, and the other is about transactions. So entity data means the data of the merchants, their KYB data, which can go into the system. And here we are referring to Tazama as the FRMS. And when the transactions are done in a Mojo Loop scheme, then those transactions also go to Tazama for evaluation. So it has the ability to use entity data and the transactional data, both to evaluate the transactions risk score. So on this part, actually, there are certain members from Basis Labs who are working to look at this integration, how the entity data and how the transaction data will be integrated with Tazama. So we are right now in initial phases to create the requirements and designs, which will be then shared with the product council in subsequent sessions.
Can I ask you a question about that before you move on? So
Yes.
is the Tazama integration okay? So you talk about transactions here. So, but you talk about entity data as well. I did in previous versions of Tazama, going back a couple of years now, I know that it was also able to address during the registration process whether this looked like a fraudulent registration as opposed to transactions. Are you envisaging anything like that within this process?
So we are looking at that part, like about when you say registrations, you mean registrations into an Oracle?
Well, during the merchant registration process.
Okay. I haven't got specifically any separate detail from the Tazama team, but I'll take a note and ask them if that thing is available as a feature. What I know from our discussions with Tazama team is that they have a general structure in which entity data can be shared, whether the entity is a customer or a merchant.
Yeah.
So what we are trying to see is do the mapping between the kind of data they expect, which we can push from our merchant portal and the transactional data will obviously go from the core Moja loop itself.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
On the cross scheme and cross border support, we haven't done any work as of yet because we're waiting. I'm also participating in that work stream too. Once the design is finalized by the cross scheme work stream, then if there are any changes that are necessitated in Oracle as a result of that, so we will take up that work.
Okay, yep.
So this is the summary of the tasks which has been done in this PI so far.
I think that you are being extremely modest in saying you're not achieving much this PI, because it feels to me as though there's some significant pieces of work there. So thank you for that, Karim. Does anyone have any questions? No? My sense is that
Sorry. If anyone has no question, I have one request.
Yeah.
We want to hear from adopters about the other tasks, because most likely this is something which what we are working on is going to be completed, but all of the other things which we had written, if there is any priority or any use case which you guys are looking at in terms of merchant payments, please do share on the Slack channel.
Well, one of the things that we've discussed, and Steve was pushing for this, was that possibly we should arrange a round table with some adopters so that we can gather those requirements for merchant payments, and also for the bill payment use case, which you also highlighted on that screen. So we'll try and set that up soon, but it will probably only have influence in the next PI. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sure.
Okay, good. But my sense here is that essentially at the end of this PI, merchant payments will, whereas at the end of the last PI, it was okay for an MVP. This is now, I would say, close to ready for actually a pilot service. Would you be happy with that, Karim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, does anyone else have any comments before we move on? No?
Yeah, one comment, I think, to follow up on the release cycle. So we have a release candidate with this feature. There are some failures on the deployment that we are using the release candidate with, so it's under investigation. I'll share more details on the core releases update towards the end. But yeah, it's in progress to follow up what Karim mentioned about the deliverables from last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Karim. That was a really good presentation, so thank you for that. Next on the list is actually Julie, and you have first of all proxies for PAPS and TCIB, and then multi-scheme deployments, then ISO 222, and multi-scheme is with Innocent if he's on the call. Which would you like to do first, Julie?
I'll start with ISO if that's okay. And apologies, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I have kind of missed the note saying we needed to prepare slides. So I just prepare myself to give an update with the slides. Next time I prepare some slides.
Sorry about that, Julie. Assumed knowledge on my part, and I can only apologize.
No, indeed, I should. No problem. My bad. Okay, so on ISO 222, I think now we are clear with the objective of what we need to do. And it's also like short of our objective, the objective of the workstream is also constrained by the ISO 222 committee timelines. So what we're going to do is sort of publish a catalog of which API will be translated into which ISO 222 messages, so that's one set of activity. And actually, like the work team has done some analysis on what are the ISO 222 message standard used by other clearing system. Second set of activity, now that our business justification of introducing a new message type for the agreement of term has been accepted by the ISO 222 committee, we will produce the message specifications that will be then submitted to ISO for review. So that would be the second set of activity. Third set of activity is like we are also introducing new fields, and we are in touch with other projects within the industry right now, namely Project Mandala from BIS, to understand how the fields that we are going to propose, and especially the specification of these fields, can be used by them as well. So that's the three set of activity for the work stream and objective. I don't think we'll be in a position where we can build things, but definitely like all the specifications should be done by the end of the PI. Any question?
Can you just restate your objectives for the end of this PI, please?
Sure. So it will be produce a catalog of ISO 222 APIs that will be used by Mojaloup. So basically a mapping of what are the existing API and what will be the ISO 222 message equivalent. Number two, it will be effectively doing the message specification of the new message standard we're going to introduce for the agreement of terms. And number three, it will be to specify the format of the new fields we are introducing and asking the ISO 222 committee to adopt.
Okay, perfect. So you'll document them and get them into GitHub, is that right? Into the repo?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Julie. Does anyone have any questions? No?
Yeah,
Okay.
so then perhaps like oh, sorry, I heard somebody.
No, I was just going to say, okay, thank you, Julie. No questions. So perhaps you'd like to move on.
Yeah, so I'll move to the PAPS and proxy for PAPS and TCIB. So
Sorry,
for
before you do, Kareem has just asked a question in the chat. The time frame we're looking for the new specs of ISO 222 for the quote message.
Okay, so on this, effectively, like we just had the business justification approved, and they've just been like the ISO 222, I don't know how they call it, global meeting, end of May. So we are looking at basically the next one, which from my understanding will be during the fall. So that's are the time frame we are looking at. Now, to be fair, the sooner we do that, the better, because usually what happens is when you submit a version to the committee, there are loads of discussion and review and so on. So that's why like the specification needs to be done by the end of this PI.
Yeah, but we don't actually have to wait for them to approve it, do we? We can just carry on the assumption that it will be accepted with maybe some minor modifications at some point.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't think like, and especially my understanding is CBC will be ISO 222 based, so we cannot wait. So in fact, like what we also discuss with ISO is that the specification that we submit will be informed by the CBC implementation. In the sense that if when we implement the message, we notice that there are some adjustment to the specification that needs to be done, we'll do it as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. Good. And that's important to emphasize its importance for CBC. So thank you. So back to PAPS and TCIB.
Okay, so I think on PAPS and TCIB, we need to come up with a set of epics to understand how basically like a multi-scheme payment work. And I think like having the foundation translated into epics is quite critical because there are a few adopters that are looking to do connection of modular loop system into a national scheme. I can think of tomorrow the People's Clearinghouse in Mexico and also like IGALA in the Philippines. So the objective of this work stream will be to, number one, define a foundational model that can be applied to potentially more clearings than PAPS and TCIB. And the second objective will be to actually define what are the specific for PAPS and TCIB.
Mhm.
And I think for this, like we pivoted our approach. So we decided to engage directly with the clearing and not like sort of knock on the back door to get this clearing specification. So for PAPS, we now have the clearing specification, if I'm not wrong, right? And we are waiting for them for TCIB.
Yes. Yes, I think that's very important. We should be we should be talking to them at sea level. We shouldn't be talking to just developers or adopters. I agree. TCIB and perhaps are different types of schemes though, aren't they? And we perhaps need to choose one accordingly. I mean, TCIB is effectively a low value funds transfer network, whereas PAPS tends to be large value. So perhaps not as relevant to us as might be thought otherwise. I wonder if the G2M team members who are on this call have any comment on PAPS and its relevance to us. Because my sense is it's not all that relevant for motor loop and the community. Any comments from the G2M team? Sorry to put you on the spot, guys.
Hi, Paul. I'm here. I would need to look further into it. I know that it's mandated for Zambia, but I still don't know whether that means directly that it's got relevance for Mojaloop.
Yeah. The way we've characterized it in our discussion so far is that TCIB is normal consumer transactions, but PAPS might be used to buy, for example, a factory in a neighboring country. So not really normal retail consumer transactions. So
No,
yeah,
that's something I can follow up with to clarify.
yeah, please
Yeah.
do. Please do. And yes, they are DFSPs, Karim, in relation to your comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just I was trying to understand that if the participants in the PEPs or TCIB are all DFSPs, then exactly are we looking at like what role for Mojaloop in this?
Well, for
Are we
PAPS,
trying?
PAPS, as I say, yes, they are actually retail transactions by the classical definition, but they're essentially between corporates. So not directly relevant to Mojaloop. However, there is a possibility that we need to integrate with PAPS for international settlement as opposed to individual consumer transactions. We need to dive a little deeper into that to find out more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me, like these are indeed like two different animals. And it's interesting because if you look also within the adopters globally, I think the typology of clearings we are looking at, they are not really an exception, right? Some of the adopters will want to connect to domestic settlement system as well. And other would want to domestic to other clearing system. So that's why, like, I think it's critical that we kind of understand what are the PAPS and TCIB's specificities versus as well having a global approach on how in this type of situation we think Mojaloop should operate.
Yep, I completely agree. Yeah. So we're not really going to progress this work stream much in this PI. It's more about a deeper understanding of those networks and what relationship we want to have. And Manzi has just commented that hubs are also members of PAPs, such as R-switch. So that might change how we relate to them. Okay, we need to explore.
So yeah, so I think for me, like to your point, Paul, like I would hope that at the end of the PI, we have at least a few foundational epics being created, right?
Yeah.
Nothing developed, but an idea of how we want to tackle this.
Yeah. So what we should be looking for by the convening is essentially a strategy for the next PI on these two.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Any final comments on this before we move on?
Yeah, please. Sorry, go ahead.
No. You're right, Julie. Let's move on. Let's go to the inter-scheme or the multi-scheme workstream.
Okay, so multi-scheme. So I think like today we made good progress. So we are clear on how on the sort of implementation approach or design approach. Now basically what is left to be done is creating the epics and review the epics within the work stream. And for now, the work of this work stream will need to pause after this activity until the winner of CBC is announced, and then we'll support basically the winner to translate the epics into stories that can be completed in a sprint. The reason, and perhaps addressing the question right from the start, the reason we are not creating stories directly is because the principle of a story is that it should be completed within a sprint without knowing the winner for CBC and how they operate. We cannot make sure that the story we create can be completed in one sprint. So that's why we will stop our specification at epics level, but making sure the acceptance criteria are well detailed. Any questions?
Yeah, sorry, this is another work stream that's very important for CBC. And it needs to be tightly defined because the community as a whole can support, but whoever wins the CBC contract is going to be leading the implementation of the inter-scheme work stream, I think. And it's going to be a focus in the next PM. So yeah, just to emphasize the importance and the value of this work stream. Does anyone have any questions? I'll take that as a no then. Okay, thank you, Julie. We'll move on. Next on our agenda is FX, and we have two separate work streams rather uniquely for all of the work streams that we have. One is FX for the vNow code base, and the other is FX for the vNext code base. So we'll concentrate on vNow for now. And Paul Baker, I think you're online. I think I saw you there. Perhaps you'd like to talk us through vNow FX.
I do have a presentation, but at the moment I'm mobile and I'm in my vehicle dropping off my son for his exam.
Okay. You want us to delay till later? Will you be available in, say, half an hour?
Yeah, half an hour might be better.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can go and I can just speak, but without a presentation.
No. Let's leave it till later if you're available. Thanks.
Okay.
Don't
Great.
worry about
Thank
it.
you.
Don't worry about it, Paul. We'll pick you up later. Let's move swiftly on to the FX for vNext code base. And the lead on that is Archie. Is Archie on the call? I didn't see.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, yes, there you are. Thank you. Yes. if you'd like to give us an update on the FX work stream.
Yeah, for the FX in VNext, the development has done from the lookup to code, and from there we have been waiting some core changes. So this has been paused from that time. So when the core requirements are completed, then we will continue this work stream.
Okay. So what do you think you'll be able to present at the convening at the end of the PI?
For now it is hard to say, but we at the end of the PI, if the changes are completed and when we can move on to the FX, then we can show what we have done so far about the like in TTK in the calls that we have implemented, like the new APIs added so far.
Okay. So
But yeah, I will confirm with you if we can present it or not after the internal discussion with the dev team, because the developments are still ongoing.
Yeah.
And there's some changes and impacts on the existing implementation of FX, so we can continue on that. That's why we have been pausing for that.
okay, thank you. You may have noticed that on the I'm trying to find it now. What the FX channel, wherever it is, the FX workstream channel. Paul Baker highlighted an issue with the WS currency conversion. Paul Baker listed a comment where they'd found a problem with the API. Are you aware of that?
Sorry, I missed that message. We will.
If you have a look on that Slack channel, Paul has posted an issue they've identified in the VNext codebase workstream with the API, and it might be worth reviewing that comment.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for highlighting that, Paul. Yeah, we will definitely review that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I suspect we need so we need probably Michael when he gets back from his vacation to review that as well, because he's kind of keeper of the API, as it were, for FX. But that's fine for now. Okay, thank you, Zachi. We'll move on. The next work stream is PISP version 2 and Paul Baker, but he's, as we've discovered, moving, so we'll leave that for now. The next one then is localization, and the leads are Zachi and Lewis. I don't know if you're both on the call. Is Lewis on the call?
Lewis is not on the call, but I'll share the update for that workstream.
Okay, thank you. Please do. Thank you, E.
The objective of the workstream is to make more accessible and usable for the user in different region and country. So our focus for PI will be to define the business requirement for the localization, specifically focus on the currency and time zone. And the other one would be the implementation of the time zone and currency. Since the member from the VNext expert team is also in the work stream, so we will be able to implement some of the implement currency and time zone localization in VNext. So a work stream member will be myself, Su Yimon from TeslaWork, Louis, Zinzin, and Swift also from TeslaWork. So for time zone localization is needed because hub operator will have to communicate about transaction settlement and to the TFSP, and then they will also have to generate report in the hub portal as well, and also in the whole hub or the DFSP operate in their local time zone. So we have to facilitate that need for the time zone localization. So the approach will be the storage of the data in the database will be in the universal time zone, which is UTC, and then presentation or the timestamp will be in the local time zone. So we have identified three main areas that will be impacted for the time zone. One is database, and as I have mentioned, the data timestamp data will be stored in UTC. And the other area is hub and the participant portal. And the third one will be login to such as Kibana and Grafana. So for participant portal or the hub portal, the profile time zone will be local time zone. Since because of the reason that I have mentioned earlier, and for login to, we still have been discussing what will be the ideal time zone to use UTC or local time zone. So we have to figure out what will be the best time zone for that. So for time zone localization implementation, so we have come up with three. Sorry, can you still hear my voice? There are some background noise from my side.
We can hear me. Your voice is clear.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So there will be three different implementation approach. One will be the setting the device system time zone as the configure time zone as a default time zone for time zone. So it will be the phase one of the time zone localization because it's the low hanging fruit for the developer, and it is already done, and we have already shown some demo for this part. And the other two will be two different approach, but we haven't finalized which one will be which one we will be choosing for the implementation. The first one, the first approach will be setting the time zone for the whole hub. If they set, for example, if a Suba admin or admin of the hub set up a time zone, then that time zone will be set up the default time zone for any user in the hub or DFSP user. And the other option would be the given user, each individual user to configure their preference time zone in the portal they are using. So we have two different approach, and there will be pros and cons for each approach, and we have to discuss for that. And the other one will be the timestamp format that we have changed for VNAs. So I have put that under the time zone area. So we have changed the timestamp as the ISO format, and this is the updated timestamp that we have done in the VNAs. We have also done some demo just today for Paul and Julie and James. So for currency configuration, so we have to define what is the hub currency. It will be the list of currency that the user in the hub can make transaction in. So there will be two different scenario that the hub operator can update the hub currency. One is the hub in hub deployment state. for example, they have onboarded all the currency that they have come up with that they can think of that the hub will be operated in. So they can also do that in the deployment stage, and the other one will be in live environment. So we want to consider the scenario as well, because for example, in COMESA, let's say the new country has been onboarded to that hub, then we have to onboard the currency for that country. And the other scenario will be the newly currency will be updated in the ISO list itself. We have encountered that kind of scenario in one of the POC we have done. So we have to consider the scenario as well. So for the status update, we will be finalizing some of the business requirement during this week, and the implementation for time zone and currency will be done and John. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good presentation. My one concern about this is that it is being implemented only in vNext, and I would encourage you to talk to James and potentially Sam about how it can also support vNow. Is that okay, James, Sam? You okay with that?
Yeah, fine with me.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Julie, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I have a question as well. Like, so effectively, when the new functionalities that are developed, can we assume that also it will mean that the TTK will also be improved and effectively contain new regression tests? Like, for example, all the FX scenarios that you mentioned here, like adding a new currency and so on, making sure that we're not breaking anything related to FX. We should have a regression test in the TTK pack for this. Is it part of the agenda to make sure that all the tests that you're developing to consistently validate this story are being also merged?
Currently, it's not in our plan yet, but we can discuss offline for that, so that we can know how to achieve that.
Okay, sure. I think it's quite important.
Yeah, I believe that the team for FX in the vNow code base have been extending TTK to support the FX APIs. I don't know if anyone from the team wants to confirm that, but that's my understanding.
I think that's the case. But
Yeah. Okay, thanks. But yes, you make a very good point, Julie. And it's going to be an ongoing concern, only increasing in priority, I think. Anyone else have any comments? No? Okay, in that case, we will move on. The next one is vNext. And James, would you like to give us an update on vNext and its current status, as you understand it?
Yep, thanks, Paul. Let me just share my slides again. You see my slides?
Got them.
Excellent. Okay, so a quick summary. This is part of the quality product pillar. Our objective at a high level is to migrate the Major League official release, so it's based on vNext components. Progress we've made since the last report in Nairobi. We are continuing to iterate on the beta release towards a release candidate. Progress is being made steadily towards that release candidate status. However, our progress is a steady rate due to the limited amount of resources that we have to contribute. So we are still looking for contributions from people with TypeScript experience, and in particular, some test engineering experience. Quick recap, what is vNext? Well, it's a new implementation of the Modulib core services, built-in TypeScript, which is a change from JavaScript that the vNow codebase is built in. It closely follows the Modulib reference architecture. It's a drop-in evolution of the current Modulib product, which has the same underlying feature set with a few enhancements along the way, the same external APIs. So the same Modulib API as the vNow product, just implemented in a new way. We are being very cautious and conservative with this program because we are working on the core of our financial infrastructure product. Why are we doing this? Well, technology evolves for a number of reasons. Business requirements change over time. Code complexity tends to increase over time as new features get added. Potential optimizations might become apparent, and the shared understanding around our community of adopters and contributors tends to evolve over time. And by simplifying our code, we can reduce the risk and hence cost of maintenance and extension of Modulib in the long term. If our code is easier to understand and reason about, and it becomes simpler and less risky to change. For good reasons for evolving, but also better tools just become available. In the early days of Modulib, TypeScript wasn't really mainstream. In the subsequent 6 years or so, TypeScript has become much more widely accepted and used. And it makes a lot of sense for us in the long term. So since that last report, as I said, we've had contributions coming from DITSWorks, Interledger Foundation, Infotex, and the Modulib Foundation. Thank you very much, everybody. We're continuing to work on our backlog. Significantly, we have an upcoming review of the Tiger Beetle integration once that work is completed. We're currently focusing on the same top-level concerns around our engineering practices with CI/CD, test coverage, and our existing test suites passing. We are looking to implement the full Modulib API specification in the same way that the existing product does. So adopters will notice no loss of functionality when we upgrade. We have a deployment pipeline in progress, and recently lots of UX and UI features and bugs have been fixed and addressed. So steady progress. Thank you very much to everybody that's contributed so far. Please, if you wish to participate, we have a Modulib Slack channel, vnext-build. If you wish to contribute, please come and join the team. There's lots of areas where people with engineering and product experience could help. So please, if you have available cycles, come and join us. I'll just skip back to that update summary there. Does anybody have any questions?
Can I ask, does anyone from DITSWorks want to comment, or Julie, do you want to come in on this? Julie.
Yeah, I'd like to comment actually, and perhaps I've add a few things, right?
Yeah.
So I think like one of the key things we've been working on is identify what is required to declare vNext as RC. And for this, the idea is like we are trying, based on the report that was published, identify exactly like, what all the stuff we need to do. Going from, okay, this needs to be discussed at DA to this needs to be developed and ticket closed. We are in the process of effectively translating this into task and story into the board. Once this activity is completed, we'll have better appreciation of the sort of scope and amount of work required. And so we'll be able to confirm when approximately VNext can be available. Obviously, this date will need to be taken with a pinch of salt because it's related to also the resource committed on the project. So if there is any change to this resource, more resource will mean acceleration, less resource will obviously mean a bit of a slowdown. But I think we will need to discuss about this like once we have visibility of the scope of work. So for me, that's also one of the objectives we absolutely need to complete by the end of this PI.
Mhm.
And I think like perhaps a second thing as well that perhaps I'd like to emphasize a bit like one of the message from James, which is it's actually natural through any digital product that is meant to be long lasting to go through technical refresh. So I think this process is a technical refresh and should be seen as such, right? So that's why like we have core principle as we need to make sure that the functional scope is the same and that we need to make sure that the upgrade is transparent for the user. So that's why, like James mentioned, we are looking for help when it comes to testing because we want to make sure that all the existing tests that we have are successfully passing on VNext. Without this, we won't be able to declare VNext as RC. So yeah, anyone who wants to contribute, like please feel free to reach out. We have like, sprint review, sprint planning, also schedule. All the details are in the channel.
Thanks, Julie.
Does anyone else want to comment? No? Okay, good. Well, thank you, James, and thank you, Julie, for your hard work in pushing forward on this VNext workstream. It's been invaluable.
Thanks,
Okay.
Paul. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Moving right on, it's next gen settlement, but I don't believe that Jason is on the call. I can report that I had a discussion with him at the end of last week to talk about progress, and his comment to me was that he's done a great deal of work on settlement so far. He says that integration not just of VNext with Tiger Beetle, but of the next gen settlement with Tiger Beetle is virtually complete. Needs some more testing, but he and Pedro are close to declaring it complete. He says that all the bugs he knows about are fixed. The principal outstanding task for him at the moment is to complete the bilateral net settlement option for implementation within the overall settlement engine, so that we're not just offering continuous gross or multilateral net. We're also able to offer bilateral net settlement, which again is something that's very important for the CBC project. There is a lot of work needed on VNow integration with next-gen settlement. Jason says that he's very happy to work with somebody who understands the VNow ledgers and settlement to help with the integration, but he's not able to actively do it himself. So we are definitely seeking support and volunteers in that space. He has, as you know, moved to the Interledger Foundation, and his focus now is on working with Rafiki and other projects that they have internally. So he is not going to be taking on more Moduloop work, having completed this settlement work for the Moduloop community. On that note, does anyone want to ask any questions? Silence leads me to assume that we're all very clear on that and there are no questions, so let's move on. Next one was back to you, James, with performance optimization. Do you want to comment on that?
Yep, thank you. Export. I think this is the last one of my shows for today.
It is.
Yeah. So I think you may have misspoken slightly there by calling this performance optimization. That's one aspect of what we've been doing in this work stream, but our main objective, well, we have a lot of objectives in this work stream. Our main objective, our highest priority, was to find out how fast the system is. That's the VNow system. And if it doesn't meet our baseline target, which is 1,000 transfers per second sustained for 1 hour, with less than 1% of those transfers taking more than 1 second, with 0% unexpected errors, durable for a period of 1 hour, then we wanted to take immediate action to rectify that. So, with that highest priority in mind, significant progress has been made. Since the last report out in Nairobi, things have slowed down. We made rapid progress during the first 3 to 6 months of this work stream. We have established an end-to-end performance test framework. We've run performance tests in various deployment configurations, captured those results, analyzed them. We've identified some quick fixes, some optimizations to move us towards that target. Those fixes have been implemented and they've made their way out into the official modular release. However, we're slowed right down at the moment because the community members who were committing resource, time and effort on this work stream have had to use their resources elsewhere as their business requirements dictate. So we've had less committed resource here over the past 3 months than previously. So we're at a state where we're very close, if not exceeding that 1,000 TPS in certain representative deployment configurations. However, our other priorities have been put on hold for the time being. Those other priorities were to introduce performance tests at lower levels in our CI pipelines and to run those as part of our pull request process. So before a code change is merged, developers will have a view of the impact on the performance of the system those changes will make. So that work is still planned, but it's unlikely to be completed or possibly even unlikely started before the end of the PI. However, if more resource becomes available to us, we'll gladly pick that up. So our final priority was to develop capacity to manually run these repeatable full end-to-end performance tests on demand, spinning up and down entire environments and the test infrastructure, etc. So on demand, periodically, we can run full end-to-end performance evaluations of the system without so much manual input as is required now. That's still something we want to do, still something in the scope of the workstream. We just don't have enough resource at the moment. So we're looking for people with infrastructure and or modular core experience, and anyone with experience doing testing on bare metal, performance testing, or even functional testing. If you have experience of running API tests or using any performance automation frameworks like JMeter or K6, then please reach out. There is a GitHub repo with all the test results, the documentation. There's a link to it in the slides here, which will be shared after this call, I understand. Thank you to everybody that's contributed so far on this work stream. Like I said, we made significant improvements and big steps towards our target. We're trying to put together a statement of the current performance of the latest release. That's work in progress. Again, we just don't have the resource to collate everything at this point in time. I'm hoping we'll be able to do that before the end of the PI, but I can't promise anything. So please, if you're able to help, we'd love to have you involved. There is a Moduloop Slack channel for this work stream. It's called perf-scale-benchmarking. We'd love to have you come and join. So I'll just flip back to the summary there. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Kareem has asked a question on the chat.
Oh, let me just check that. Sorry, missed that. Durable for 1 hour. Okay.
Yep.
Durable for 1 hour, Kareem. That means that the system should remain stable, delivering this throughput of 1,000 TPS for 1 hour, and over the period of that hour, less than 1% of those transfers should take more than 1 second. So durable for 1 hour just means that the system has to remain stable for 1 hour running at this level of throughput with less than
Okay. That's
my understanding anyway. I didn't actually write this, but it was Miller, believe it or not, who gave us this requirement. But my understanding is that durable for 1 hour means the test has to run at this level of throughput, 1,000 TPS, for the whole hour. And over the course of that hour, less than 1% of those transfers should take more than 1 second, and we should have 0 unexpected errors. I'm just reading your second comment. Many countries won't need 1,000 TPS. We should have benchmark with hardware specs. Yes, indeed. Once our plan was always that once we'd achieved this throughput, we would collate the results. The tests were run on various hardware configurations, but the results are spread out over lots of different documents in various repositories. So there's a job to collate those results together and present them in a meaningful way, so adopters can understand what level of performance they should expect on various hardware configurations. Our ideal outcome would be to publish a kind of sliding scale that shows the scalability of the system in terms of throughput over various increasing hardware profiles.
I think that's really important, James, and it's certainly the case that we are looking at some low volume deployments. But I think Julie makes a really good comment as well, where we're talking about nation scale and regional implementations. So I think we need to head at to the other end of the scale as well.
Yeah, the target of 1,000 TPS, that was arrived at, I think, by the market research that Gates Foundation had conducted themselves. I'm pretty sure that's been updated over the last 6 years, and that number has changed. But that was their best estimate for where we should aim in order to meet the objectives of the Moduloop project. If you get my meaning, as to be able to cope with nation scale deployments for 5 or 10 years into the future.
Yes, I mean, if we were to look at a nation scale deployment in a country like Nigeria, which I know is unlikely because of the way the regulator oversees everything, then we could easily below 1,000 TPS out of the water. As
Yeah.
so 5,000 TPS is certainly envisageable in country
Yeah.
like Nigeria.
Indeed. Now, obviously, the traffic patterns you'd expect would consist of peaks and troughs. There'd be some periods with very, very high transaction levels and some periods with lower transaction levels. So this 1,000 TPS that we targeted for here would be a peak that lasts for 1 hour on 1,000 TPS. So the intention is to prove that we could cope with a peak of 1,000 TPS over a period of 1 hour.
Yes, but Kareem's comment about we barely touching 100 TPS at peak, yes, but then Rust is in the early days of deployment, so I would expect that to increase, Kareem, and I'm sure you are planning for that as well.
Yeah.
See, my comment was just to make sure that, if we have tested for lower TPS, 50, 100, 150, because in some recent deployments that we have managed, the idea is that, yes, we have one time, because conducting this benchmarks is itself a very costly affair. You need to have all the infrastructure. So while we do a benchmark for 1,000 TPS, that could be a one-time activity, but we have smaller benchmarks also, so that we have ready assessment that for an on-prem deployment of 50 or 100, this is the investment that you will need to do in your infrastructure and how that scales up. So the adopters are looking for assurance both on how much infra I need to put now versus that also that it can scale up to reach 1,000 TPs.
Yeah, that's absolutely my perception as well, Kareem. Julie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think like for me, this notion and James, like you read into my mind because I raised my hand for this notion of peaks and drops, right? And I think the peaks are critical now that we, for example, looking at a cross-border adoption with remittance being one of the priority. That means the end of the month will be a potential period where you will have peaks, right? Because you can expect migrant workers to send a good portion of their salary home. So I think for me, like testing, like, in peaks beyond 1,000 TPS is also critical. And when it comes to actually like the report that you mentioned, is it an objective for the end of this PI to publish a report around performance and what the system can do?
Yes, it's an objective.
Okay.
Can I promise we will deliver that objective? No, I can't make that promise with the current resource commitment. And maybe it would be better to call it an ambition.
I think that's reasonable expectation management for the convening, but I'm hoping that we will have something to show at the convening on this.
So am I.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, James. Well, let's move on.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, before we go back to Paul Baker, let's hear from Sam. Sam, you have two work streams here: platform quality and security, and core run releases. Can you give us an update on them, please?
Sure, Bob. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Paul, can you confirm you can see this?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. For those of you who were there in the last product council meeting, I've already given an update. So it's for those of you, it's more of rehashing the same. But I'll go through this for the sake of others and the review. Is that okay, Paul?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, of course.
All right. So the goal for this PI was we usually do one release per PI, and until that release is done, usually this release is made towards the end of the PI. But then through the course of the PI, we maintained the latest module loop release up to that point. Currently, the module loop latest release is module loop V16, 1600, and the name is Congo, module loop Congo. So the goal was we maintain that and we make at least one release. But when we came towards the beginning of this PI, we understood we want to make two releases, especially as the input from the modular platform quality and security work stream came along. And also there was a deliverable for the merchant work stream. So we wanted to bundle those two changes and other performance changes. So those three primarily, and make a release. So corresponding to that, we have module loop 1610 release candidate in the works. So we are iterating and going through the general process of the release. There are some configuration and internal failures that we are dealing with currently, and also addressing some more security alerts that our GitHub tools have given. So that process is in progress. So the goal was to make those releases and maintain the existing latest stable release. The progress has been that we have release candidate for 1610. And we are testing that currently. Anticipated progress is that we will make this release, and as we get closer to July, as we have the community event starting July 9th, we'll be prepared for another release candidate or release. We know that some of the features such as FX is ready to go, but depends on the feature team whether they're willing to make a push to be included or not. But on the release side, we'll be ready to go if the features are ready. Apart from that, yeah, there is some activity about sandboxes as well. We have our current dev and QA environments using the latest module loop release. So one of them we are using for testing this release candidate, but another one uses module loop Congo, and we have our daily regression test runs running on that and publishing results on a daily basis, which we see on the announcement channel. We also have some other sandboxes using module loop latest release and IAC release V5, which we use for supporting adopter needs and other things as well. There is no, I've raised this in the last product council meeting as well. We don't have a funded team doing this at the moment. So any contributions here are welcome, and I appreciate all the support you're doing freely at the moment. Like pull request reviews and helping with the issues and access and dealing with failures. But it'd be good if there are any dedicated volunteers or contributors here. So if you are interested in contributing even a few hours a week, please reach out. Thank you. Moving into the actual details of the release candidate. At a high level, there are three primary updates included in this. Performance enhancements done by the performance workstream. So in this workstream, we haven't done this, but the work that has been done by the performance workstream to improve modular performance even more than what's there in modular Congo, those are all still here. These are present in the release candidate. There is more work being done, but at the time of the release, whatever is ready, we'll go with those. The current assumption is that this is not a blocker, but all those that are ready at that time will go in with the release. Secondly, this is our biggest consideration as well. There are a lot of security patches. So initially, when we had modular Congo, after that, we came across a couple of security alerts regarding TAR and EJS and things like that. We had some security issues, so we were patching our libraries and services. And we wanted to make an interim release even before a major release, such as modular V17. So we have most of our services upgraded with that. We are going through the rest of the depend about alerts that are anything like high or critical. We also want to make sure the moderate alerts are addressed as well, but we'll get to that after the high and critical ones are addressed. The deliverable by merchant payment workstream. So we are able to update, validate this feature locally. And this is also present in the release candidate. We have the Helm charts, but this will go through as well once the end-to-end testing, all the existing test collections pass and we have zero failures. So the current status is that the testing is in progress. I'm seeing some failures, but going through the usual process to identify, debug, and go further on those and fix those. There's a PR link here for a reference. I'll be recreating that PR to create the release automation again. But if anyone wants to look at how it looks like and what the changes are involved so far, you can take a look at that. So that's where we are now. once this release is done, if let's say the FX team says this is ready for release, or if another team comes to us, say, let's say the MOSIP team has some deliverables as well. I think they've delivered a couple of services. I've seen a demo as part of the sprint review and in other places. So if they're ready, then they'll be included as optional services here as well. And in any any feature team for that matter, even the settlement team, if that is provided in supported in vNext by the end of this PI by some optimistic outcome, then that will be bundled and we'll be ready to go with that release as well. The next one will most likely be V17 because we're looking at some breaking changes. For example, the FX will be a breaking change. And we need to look at other changes that will be included at that time. We'll follow the semantic versioning model and collaborate with the Paul and Product Council, determine the version, the name, and then I think we have the name for that as well, Zambesi. So we'll go with that for now. But that'll come after this release is done. In the meantime, we'll start supporting V16.10 once that is published, and also look at making an IAC release corresponding to that. So that'll be in the works as well once this is done. This is like a roadmap. V16 currently, 16.10 in progress, and a future release what will come. And we have in 16.10 the three main updates: merchant payments features, performance enhancements, and security patches. Sorry, I think I went through that quickly. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want to know in detail regarding this? Thank you, Mansi.
Any comments from anyone? Can you talk briefly, Sam, about IAC releases in tandem with this?
Sure, Paul. So for every module you release, we do it in a way that it includes our core services, but that's not required. I mean, that's not that is necessary, but not sufficient for deploying modular platform. So the modular platform involves many supporting components as well, like the API gateway we talked about Istio in the last community event, and we have tooling for secure connections, like the connection manager. We have tools for storing certificates or keys, such as Vault, and testing tools as well, like the TTK instances, participation tools that are that we publish. So many things that are there apart from the core services. So all these we have the modular infrastructure as code release that bundles them up. So it's a downstream, let me say, component that takes the modular core and then ensures that all these other supporting components either are upgraded or configured properly to work with that, and then makes a bundled release as well. For V16 of Mojo Loop, we have IAC version 5.0.0 that corresponds to that, and that was tested. And we have sandboxes currently that can be readily deployed, and we've tested it thoroughly. And even one or two are running now that are deployed using IAC V5 that deploy Mojo Loop V16. So for every Mojo Loop release, we have a corresponding IAC release, at least one of them. But the IAC may have more release as well, because there are many components involved in IAC. They keep constantly upgrading, but the core they'll be using will be based on the latest one or two Mojo Loop releases. So for V16.10, we'll test Mojo Loop with the existing IAC release at the time, and some configuration changes might be needed because we'll have a few new services like the merchant services and in any others, and that will involve some changes, and we'll make a bundle release there as well. We don't publicize that much because we also have, at least used to have in olden days, where other components like Miniloop, for example, used to take the Mojo Loop release, the bare bones core release as it is, and then do some scripting and packaging around that and create a Miniloop version around that. And there are other people we know that use Helm releases directly and then deploy supporting components around that on their own, like in Azure or in the past that was done in Azure. I don't know if they're doing it still. So that's the difference. Mojo Loop core works as it is for deploying Mojo Loop core. If someone wants to do their own custom platform by adding the other components separately. But IAC is the release that follows our best practice and guidance that we've tested out here in our work streams. And the Mojo Loop foundation host sandbox that are deployed using ISC as well. Does that answer that question, Paul? Or
Yes, I think that's a good comprehensive answer. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Sam. I think that certainly some members of the community, perhaps not the ones on this call, weren't really aware of that. So that's why I wanted you to go through it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to get better at the comps. So we've tried in the past few releases at least to address that gap, because earlier we used to make a big announcement when Mojo Loop release was made, for example, like up to V15
Yeah.
and 15. But what we've done, we've made a concerted effort for the past few releases to make an announcement only when we have both a Mojo Loop release and an accompanying IAC release as well. Like for the 16.10 Congo, we made the announcement together where we have IAC V5 and Mojo Loop V16. So even previously V4 and 15 corresponding to that. So we'll continue that. Hopefully that will address that gap, but we need to get better at communication. I agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam. That's great. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? No? Okay, Sam, do you want to move over to platform quality and security?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this one is a bit of a brief update as well. So there are a lot of good, healthy discussions that have happened in this. But in this PI, we wanted to do a few things primarily. There was one bonus goal, but primarily we wanted to tighten up our Mojo Loop releases and Mojo Loop repositories as well. And there was one activity we wanted to do on the third-party dependencies as well, what we call the software bill of materials, SBOM. And on that, so those were the goals for this PI, tighten up our GitHub repositories, for example, or main branches that they are named appropriately. The main is the name that we want to use for our primary branches. Previously, it was master, and we wanted to move away from that. And most of the current repos that we use in our platform are renamed. We wanted to create branch protection rules on main branches, primary branches, so that commits can be made only through pull requests, that some conditions should pass, like there should be at least one code owner approval, those kind of things. So that's the tightening on that part. And on the Mojo Loop releases, we wanted to look at services, and we have several tools like Dependabot, Snake. We have CodeQL by GitHub. We have GitHub secret scanning by GitHub, and we have Sonar Cloud by Sonar. Sonar Cloud, its own thing as well. So we've configured all these, and in our releases, we wanted to have a bar on releases. Every Mojo Loop release will not have any high or critical alerts reported by our tooling. So we are going through that, and this was the input given. And in the past, some releases have not prioritized this, in the sense that we've addressed some issues, but there are still some lingering issues from the past, which we are methodically addressing in this PI. So created many PRs. Thanks for those who are supporting this effort. Not only that, we are, for example, in our Node.js services, we have package.json file and a package lock.json file as well. We usually are very good at maintaining our package.json files, but the actual package log.json file, which is contains the build history and how we develop things from scratch, had some issues. So these alerts actually look into that as well, and we're looking at addressing those and fixing those Dependabot alerts and Snake alerts, which report any vulnerabilities in the previous versions as well. So that is ongoing. We wanted to address that for our services that are included in the core of Mojo, like Central Ledger, ML, API Adapter, ALS. But the thing is, again, these three services use many libraries as well, like Central Services, Shared, Stream, Event SDK, metrics, those kind of. So we upgrade the libraries, and then we update the underlying services that use these libraries to address those. So that was those are two big items there: GitHub maintenance and hardening of Mojo Loop core services from the perspective of known Dependabot and Snake alerts and others reported by our platform tools. Apart from that, this is another big activity. I've created an issue for this, and we might get some help in the form of an intern who will be working for us. So we wanted to create a centralized repository of all third-party dependencies that we use in our core services. so that when an issue is found or reported, or when a vulnerability is reported in the public, then we can immediately identify which of our services are affected, and we can take remediation, actions addressing that as well. So this is something that we are going to do. I think in June we'll get an intern and we'll start on that activity. So that's on the bill of materials. And the open SSF badge, want to do that as a bonus, but I think the others are priority. And once we are done with addressing the alerts for this modular release, it'll put us in a good place. I looked at the requirements for open SSF badge, and I think there are about 9 or 10 criteria, and we follow a good number of them already, like 7+. So we need to see what the gaps are, and we should look at applying for them. Thanks for those of you who participated in the meetings, and we've discussed some other things that are not included here. For example, we discussed labeling modular repositories. We have about 190, between 190 and 200 repositories now in modular GitHub, on modular GitHub. We discussed in that in some of the PQS, platform quality and security weekly meetings, we discussed labeling them to indicate which are critical to us, like which, for example, central ledger or transfers BC, those kind of things which are core to our platform. Whereas some are more like documentation repositories or testing tools or reference tools, repositories that offer, like they're used for hackathons or provide as reference. Those kind of things, we don't need that stringent quality measures on those. So we wanted to label those. That is another thing we can probably do this PI as well. Time is a bit of a constraint, but Paul Baker suggested that in our meetings, and we might still do that this PI. So that will give a good indication of the repositories that we have, which is more important, and how stringent of requirements we have on those, and others which are not part of the platform and which we don't apply those many measures, and people can contribute based on the requirements for each of those repositories. So that's probably another thing we'll do this PI as well. Wanted to do a couple of blog posts as well. Once this release is done, then we'll look at doing that.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
That's all I have for this.
That's great. Does anyone have any comments on the platform quality and security workstream? No? I just thank you for your work, Sam. It's absolutely vital to all of the work streams ultimately. So thank you for pursuing it. I know you were the instigator of this, and it's very
Thank you.
vital.
Yeah, appreciate your support and everyone who supported this. But yeah, we do need some contributions here. So if anyone is willing, happy to work with you to get this done. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sam. Okay, so our final two work streams on the list are those led by Paul Baker, who I believe is now back and available to lead on these. So the first one is FX for the vNow code base, and the other is PISP. So Paul, if you are able, would you give us an update on those two work streams?
Yes, I am able, and thanks for letting me do this a bit later. It's a lot easier to present while I'm not driving.
Yes.
Okay, so to start off with some feedback on the FX workstream. This is currency conversion extension to Moduloop. So I haven't got many slides, which is good because I think we're way over time, but everything's been done in the open source against on the Moduloop board. So I've got a link to that here, and I can switch over quickly to see how that looks like. There's a massive number of stories that have been completed against this epic, and if you have a look here, 120 of 160 epic points completed. So in my summary, I said 90% done according to these points. Maybe that's a little shy of that, but I'm not 100% convinced we need to complete all the stories. So that's essentially the summary. But let me backtrack a bit. Let's talk about the objectives for this work stream. So the first objective is to complete the the payer DFSP FX conversion flow inside merge loop as per the designed in the community. And then the second objective is to build the payee DFSP and FX integration support tools for that for these flows as well. So where are we?
So point 2 is about the participants. It's not about the core.
It's not about the core, but
Yeah.
that it's equally important.
Of course it is.
So
Of
that
course,
we can test it end to end.
Of course it is. I just wanted to clarify for everyone. You know, you're doing the core work, and then you have to do an extension of the integration with participants as well to support this. Yeah,
That's correct. Yes. So progress against number 1, it's work in progress, but I said 90%, but maybe it's 85%. I'll update that, 85% complete, but a lot of work has been done, and it's very close to being merged into a main release of merge loop. It hasn't yet been merged though. And in terms of the merge loop connector, or at least the participation connection tools, that's still at POC level. So it still needs to be hardened and updated with all the different test cases before that can be merged into the mainstream. So yeah, that's where we are. Anticipated progress. Unfortunately, I've had to move the team off this project at the moment to work on other important work streams. So I don't see that. I don't see this final last piece of the puzzle being completed this PI, but the situation may change. But right now it's sitting there 90% complete, waiting for that last bit to be pushed over the line before it can be merged in and then made an official release of merge loop. Okay. And in terms of support needed, we obviously support all contributions that are made. And we'll continue to do that. Then let me jump to the PISP.
Before you move on,
Okay.
I wanted to raise the point and to highlight to everyone the message you put out on the WS currency conversion Slack channel.
Yes.
On
that doesn't affect this use case directly. It affects the payee DFSP conversion flow. But definitely should be, I think, debated amongst the work stream and the CCB to see if they can come up with an answer to that.
Yes, agreed. And this affects the FX for VNext work stream as well. So,
I would guess so. Yes, it would have to.
yes. So we need to have a decision on that. I presume that everyone would be happier if we could leave that until Michael returns from his vacation.
Yes, I think so. It's not a blocker.
No. Okay, good. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make that comment before you moved on.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, are there any questions?
Yeah. Any questions from the floor?
Please go to the Epic and have a look at the stories and the PRs and all the information is there and available.
Well, Paul, you mentioned like the completion of 90 or 85%. Are you looking for this to be published with a module release like Zambezi soon, or what's your plan?
It's until I've got clarity on the team, it's very hard to put an exact number behind it. There is some outstanding work. There's not a lot. I would love to get this over the line as soon as possible. But you know, it's not all in my hands at the moment. So
yeah, I'm not too much concerned about the work left. But like, do you mean will you go for the release after that is done, or is that not a priority?
It all depends. I think having work in progress is never good. I think we're in the fortunate position to be able to deploy a snapshot release of this. So we can do sort of advanced POCs on it, but it does need to be completed and added to the main work stream, and that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Perhaps you'd like to move on then.
Yes. So on the PISP work stream effort, this is largely still being focused around in the CCB to try and sort of get the change. Well, let's look at the update summary. So it's really about getting agreement on the design and then getting that changed through and updated on the modular specifications repo. So there has been progress on this. We have completed the design, and in fact we've also completed the open API Swagger definition. I can just show a brief view of that at the moment. That is available. It is sitting on a branch, waiting for reviews. We're getting some feedback from community. We need to go through that and evaluate it yeah. Well, we can't also just commit as it is, because we need to have supportive documentation also in that same PR that describes how to use it and the value that it's providing. So currently the PRs, well, the branch is there, rather, that's branch, not a PR, and the documentation still needs to be added. And then we will merge that in. We do have a good basis of documentation already, so I'm not envisaging a massive amount of effort to putting the documentation over. So I still believe that we will be able to complete this change request by the end of the PI. So that's where we are at the moment. So the Swagger is available. In this presentation, I do have a link here to the Open API branch. The Open API change is sitting in a branch, so it's not an Open API branch, but the Open API is available in that branch. And then we got some PISP SIG docs if anyone else in the community would like to sort of follow along and get more involved and have a look at the detailed sequence diagrams. That we've got a high-level view of that. Oh, I did have it open, and yes, here we go. Open SIG docs. There's quite a lot of sequence diagrams. We've in fact started looking at and discussing what next is important for PISP. I think we've well, that's primarily because we've decided that we're fairly happy with the current API, but we haven't gone through completing and signing that off just yet. Work in progress.
Okay. One thing you haven't touched on, Paul, and sorry to put you on the spot, but this is version 2 of the API. Why are you doing version 2? What was wrong with version 1 dot whatever?
Yes.
The overall objectives.
Good question. I think I have covered this in quite a few convenings, which is why I didn't talk about it now. But I'm happy to summarize.
If you
A couple of reasons. The one is they are missing authentic flows that should really be part of the API. They were in version 1, they were considered to be out of band, but they really shouldn't be. They should be a core part of the API. So we've included that. Then we've also got a refactored view. And this means that from a PISP perspective, the integration is simple. There's really a two-step process in order to be able to trigger and confirm a payment, which is much more in line with what people expect in the market. We've also got some extensions to the flow so that the PISP can be used for request to pay as well as PISP, which I think is really important for small, not quite merchant organizations to be able to request people to receive payments, which is quite important, I think, in the communities we're trying to have impact in. And then there's I'm trying to remember so the refactor, the PISP flow. There's one other thing that slipped my mind, but it's all summarized in previous in previous convening presentations.
Thank you. I know you've covered it in the past, but never does any harm to repeat it. So thank you. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Paul? No? Great. Well, thank you, Paul.
One thing you did say, why is this important? I want to say one more thing, and that is PISPs, the big accelerator on the program. It allows you to get volume, high volume. We've seen that in other networks around the world. So this is I know number one priority is to have live modular loop transactions. Number two priority is to enable the fintech market. And so PISP is something that we shouldn't ever sort of stop focusing on, because it is a vital component to the success of modular.
Yeah, completely agree. So thank you for emphasizing that, Paul. Okay, on that note, I see we've just used our allotted time. We're absolutely on time. It's 2 hours. So I'd like to thank everybody who has stuck it out for the 2 hours. I will share the recording of this session on the Product Council channel later today. So thank you to all the workstream leads who presented today. I think it's been a really good session. So thank you and goodbye, everyone. Till next week.
Oh, thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.